Stephen, we're going to call this one Laughter and Tears. You work with bereaved people in perhaps more ways than one, so tell me about Laughter and Tears.
Well, obviously most people, as we know, as you grow older, most certainly, we tend to see people who we've known and loved, and life has a period of time to run through, and of course we generally get older, we tend to know more people who have passed over. So I looked at the laughter and the tears because, yeah, there's always tears because we lose someone. And I've said it many times, and I think we've said it on videos, where I've heard people in spiritual work say, oh, they're in a better place. Well, they might be in a better place, but I wish it was here, because we miss the physical. And that is important, no matter where it is. And until we're reunited in light, we will always miss them, because it's like, to me, it's like a scar. It's very easily opened. I know that to my own experience that it's happened, because, you know, there are times when we always miss people who we've known and we've loved. But yes, it is very sad, but also there is this great joy and this great happiness that one time will be real. Now there are people who say, oh, I don't believe in it. Well, you know, I think they're in for pleasant surprise when they pass over.
Well, let's hope so.
Well,
so that's the tears. Is that shirt the laughter then?
Well, the laughter is because, I'll give you an example, I've just done it on the website, is I put something on about a gentleman called W.T. Steve, who passed sadly on the RMS Titanic. And he was a wealthy man, he was a journalist.
Very topical, we're at is it the 100th?
100, just over 100 years, yeah. And as an ex-naval man, it's quite poignant as well. So what he did, when he first passed over, because he was a wealthy man, he thought, well, you know, bear in mind, we're going a long while back. But what he wanted to do was pick up the telephone and say to his daughter, Estelle, I'm all right, I'm well. But of course, you know, he didn't have a telephone, and what he had to do was, or his daughter did, was to search and find a true, genuine trance medium. And there are a lot of people who think they're trance mediums and are not, but in those days there were more about. And a lot of information came forward. So what he wanted to say, as so many people want to say, is, I'm okay, things are all right. They tend, like he did, not to want to talk about the physical passing. They want to talk about where they are now, how it's improved. You know, how the transition from the two was is so simple. And this is where people talk about this strange thing with the ghosts. Well, I've seen a lot of brave people. I've seen a lot of people who's passed over. You know, why on earth do they want to be hanging about down here? You know, when you're in this place, it's like standing in the United Kingdom in the middle of January with hardly any clothes on. It's pouring with rain or sleeting and snow. When you go into a world of light. You're
comparing this fine country in winter to purgatory.
Over the years, as you get older, Mr. Green, I can assure you, it becomes that way.
Shameful. Tell me about, just briefly, you mentioned trance mediums there. What are we talking about there? That's a medium who's able to sort of take on the embodiment of that person, or
yeah.
What do you mean by that, as opposed to an ordinary medium?
Well, everybody in the work we do, and they use the word mental mediumship nowadays a lot. But over the 30 years I've been involved in, you've seen subtle changes, not always for the good, changes a thing around us, but sometimes it's for good, sometimes perhaps not so good. But what happens is we have an altered state of consciousness. That's why when you're speaking, the spirit fill you with energy, and the spirit people have companions, pass you information. You change, you're different. Mediums are different. You see, psychics tend to be the same person that you see on the public platform or giving a message as when they're. But we are different.
For some reason, you come across camper. I don't know why.
It's very kind of you to say that.
Yes, that shirt's helping.
Indeed, it is. It takes me back to the 1960s, and the time I can remember very well. But no, I think you've got this. But there is people, and I've seen the real thing. I've seen and received information nobody could tell about. Nobody could guess it. Absolutely phenomenal information. And I've heard other people who make out they're in trance, and with a peculiar, strange Chinese garbled accent, then they're not in trance. To tell you it's a wonderful world, that's not what I want to know. The great mediums of the past, and there are still great mediums, and there are people who we don't hear about, who are not in the glare of publicity, who are wonderfully gifted mediums. There's so many people who are in touch. But sadly, there are others who, it seems like almost a race to get to the front of the queue, and there is no race to get to the front of the queue.
You mentioned the accent one, and I always find it funny that, the kind of Oriental accent that they, if you're in contact with a Chinese person, they would speak English, but with a Chinese accent, and they wouldn't just speak Chinese,
Yes, and they all have the deep, heavy breathing. And then, I doctor, you're from Light. There's a good one, is they usually close their eyes as well. But I don't know whether it's self-delusion or what it is. It amazes me. But it is strange, but we have had some wonderful people. But what it is, it makes sometimes us sound rather silly. And when I think we've had some phenomenally wonderful mediums, even in my time of 30 years, we've had some excellent mediums who nobody really talks about.
We're wandering off subject here, but when were the kind of the halcyon days of trance mediumship?
Well,
because the sort of famous ones that were proved to be frauds weren't the ones that Arthur Conan Doyle was.
Well, I wouldn't say it was a fraud, but that.
No, one of the two that one or two that he was.
Oh yes,
his wife were connected with.
Yeah, at the end of the day, there's always that's going to happen. It's going to be something that holds you back. It doesn't matter. You could be a wonderful trance medium, and 99 times is fantastic. But the one time, and the human, we are human, and we have weaknesses, and perhaps if they don't do it correctly, and they're caught, you've lost your credibility.
Proof isn't proof of absence and all that.
Yeah,
I think that perhaps where they might let themselves down is a human trait of, if you don't deliver, try and flannel and fill, instead of kind of going, I've not got anything.
Yeah, well, I think
how many times do people do that, I suppose?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that does. That's why I don't particularly like doing theatre work. I've tried it, I didn't enjoy it, and it does become theatrical. And people had a little bit on it. You can get people who don't know. Ron said, "Look, I don't know about that." People might ask me about certain things, and it's not my field. I don't understand that.
Yeah, it doesn't make good theatre to go, I'm not sure, so I'm not going to say
no,
it, does it?
No, well, you see that, throughout the world. You see it on the mass media, you see it with politics, where they'll talk for hours about nothing and give you no answers. I think I heard a trans medium once, and every question she asked, she kind of like detracted it, and I thought, I don't know about being a medium, but it should be better off being a politician.
It's interesting how you're not more drawn to the theatrical side of it, the kind of show side of it, because I don't know whether you describe yourself as this, but you're quite a showman. You're quite animated.
Mm.
When you're sort of performing or in the zone or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, well, call it what you want. Shall I say, more in touch with those who have moved forward into life. No, but our countenance changes, and you're a different personality, and so that's vitally important. There has to be a change, and people have to see that there's a change. I've seen people who talk exactly the same, act the same. If I was as I am in my normal day, which the Spirit would allow me to be, then I'm not in touch with the Spirit would, not in the sense that I'm not completely, because we're all in touch in some way, but I'm not around there giving messages. I'm sure if you had the doctor come round, I'm sure the doctor, if you're having a meal with your wife, he wouldn't want to talk about operations. Neither does the dentist. So we all have different facets to our personalities and our individuality, and there are times when we must work and do what we do, and that's what we do. We are to pass messages of joy and gladness.
Well, that brings us nicely back to the sadness and tears aspects, or what did we call it? The laughter and tears.
Laughter and tears.
So what's the sort of closing message for this video then?
I think that the fact is, yes, I know it's sad, and it is sad, and it will always be sad, because we miss our loved ones, we grieve for our loved ones, but when we get a little bit of information, not just from me, but there's many, many fine mediums around the world, whether they go to spiritualist churches or not is really irrelevant, but you get that little bit of information, and somebody once described it as like getting a postcard, say, look, I'm okay, it's great here. Just that small piece helps you. And we are travellers moving through this life to a greater life, and sometimes just get a little signpost, that little reassurance, then hopefully we'll wipe the tears from the mourner and replace them with a little light in their heart for that glad day and that great day when we should be reunited, but a heartbeat away, a step away.
I will take from this the little one that you said, that even if you don't believe, perhaps you've got a pleasant surprise coming further on down the way.
Yes, indeed you have.
We'll see.
Happy days.